only when you come to close quarters with polar exploration that you realize just how wide are the interests of an expedition such as ours, and how useful its results. There were we taking down a hand-picked body of scientists, expert in the problems of climate and snow and ice conditions that were going to dominate our environment for the next 2 years and more. And we should be able to radio back to civilization data that could be put to immediate use, by the whalers, for instance, and in the weather forecasting system of South Africa. Somewhere out in the vast expanse of the Southern Ocean, our advance party on the whale factory ship Torshavdi were awaiting us. We kept in touch with them by radio. In the middle, he's an Australian. And making up the party, there's Joe King of South Africa, Fred Roots of Canada, Dr. Wilson of Sweden, and Rugstad of Norway. After 4 days in the westerlies, we altered course to come up with the Torshavdi. It wasn't long before we sighted the first. You can tell that's a young iceberg because the sides are still comparatively clean cut, smooth vertical break-off faces. And now there's an older one. The sea's had time to carve out caves and fissures. It's been weathered. These tabular bergs are the giants of the Southern Ocean. They have been known to exceed 70 miles in length. When there's ice about, fog can be a very real menace. So we kept checking regularly on the temperature and humidity of the air. But our luck held, and it wasn't long before we came across one of the Torshavdi's whale catchers. On January the 12th, we met the Torshavdi about 300 miles west of the South Sandwich Islands and just north of the 60th parallel. But we had to wait 2 days for the swell to moderate before we could get alongside. And then we used 2 60-foot fin whales as fenders. This ship-to-ship business in mid-ocean wasn't at all easy. In fact, we only managed it by getting in the lee of an iceberg. And even then, the Norsel's deck was rising and falling as much as 15 feet. But the transshipment of our advance party went off without a hitch, and that included the 3 amphibious snow tractors called weasels. The name weasel is simply a shortened mixture of the words water, sea, and land. We also took on board 17 tons of whale meat. Food for the huskies. looking at Nozzle with her deck cargo of petrol and oil drums, of sledges and sledge dogs and whale meat and weasels, I was very glad that we were through the roaring 40s. The last leg of our 10,000-mile journey lay before us. The Antarctic, that unknown white continent, would soon loom up on the horizon. What had it in store for us? After leaving the Torshövde, we headed east-southeast until we were due north of Queen Maude Land. We did this because the ice usually drifts westwards in summer and so tends to loosen up along the coast. So although we sighted the pack quite soon, we didn't try to enter it. We were hoping for open water. From now on, Captain Jakobsen, in command of the Nozzle, rarely went below. Nor did Captain Jeber. Of January, we entered the pack just south of the Antarctic Circle and quite near the meridian of Greenwich. It was easy going to begin with, through light one-year-old ice with no trace of pressure. But as we pushed south, the ice closed in, became heavier, showed signs of pressure. There were hard ridges where the floes had rafted one above the other. Presently, we stopped. Our small, strong ship pitted against the white wilderness of the pack and quite helpless. This was our first chance of exercise in 4 weeks, and we made the most of it. There's never any need to go thirsty in the pack. You can chop yourself some fresh water whenever you like. Everyone helps out with these routine jobs. Day after day and still no progress. We'd have liked an aerial reconnaissance, but the surface was too rough for wheels or skis. Then, on January the 30th, a slight easing of the pack, and we were on the move again, but now heading north to reach open water where we could use the Oysters as float planes. Calm. No ice, no whales. That's the kind of aerodrome we were looking for. And when we found it, we worked fast. Squadron leader Walford made the first flight, and so that there could be no question of his getting lost, we fitted the plane with a homing device, a radio compass giving the relative bearing of the ship. This takeoff, by the way, was early. You can see the Oyster lift a few feet and then drop back again almost onto the water. The cause of that was an ice fragment right ahead that might well have holed one of the floats if the plane had hit it.
That peninsula, which is in front of the ship now, in fact, the peninsula of the old iceberg, ever? Well, if it's an iceberg, it's the biggest bloody iceberg that I've ever seen, ever. Okay, actually, you have to get a course of your downwind of us, and if you want to go in the other direction, you will want to have something to spare, over.
The conversation between the plane and the ship was recorded by tape machine.
Right, thank you. Not all right.
This was the first of many flights that made it possible for us in the nozzle to force the passage of the pack in 4 days, simply because Captain Jacobsen knew from aerial reconnaissance where the weak spots lay. Sunset that lasts for hours and then becomes the dawn. This time we kept further west and went straight through and right up to the endless seeming ice cliffs of Queen Maude Land. But this brilliant, immaculate coastline is not land. This is shelf ice, a fringing skirt of compacted snow built up layer by layer through the centuries and pushed far out beyond the real limits of the continent, an undulating, floating tableland of spotless desolation anchored on the rocks of hidden islands. Queen Maude Land, Norway's most southerly possession, and the expedition's home for more than 2 years. We were looking now for somewhere to put the wintering party ashore, an accessible gap in the ramparts of the shelf ice. Eventually we found one, and went alongside on February the 10th. In our first 4 days, we managed to unload 350 tons of stores, the huts, the weasels, dogs, food, and the planes. The RAF got busy uncrating and assembling the second of the 2 Oysters and fitting both of them with skis. It was chilly work in 30 degrees of frost. To have set up base right here where the icebergs come from would have been asking for trouble. So not until we'd found a safe spot away from the edge of the shelf ice, no crevasses, no sign of movement, did we start to ferry everything in by sledge. It was a 2-mile drag from where the nozzle was lying, slightly uphill, and each weasel took a payload of up to 2 tons all the way in 20 minutes. the Norsel's cargo piled up on the site of Mordheim, as we decided to call the base. It was an encouraging sight, especially for Captain Yever. We didn't use the dogs for this shuttle service. We knew the way, and it was a good deal safer than Regent Street. Dogs are for exploratory travel. In difficult, unmapped mountain country and on glaciers, you can't beat them. But then the weather went back on us with wind and drift, the beginnings of blizzard. Our weathermen got busy as soon as conditions improved, sending up small balloons to drift with the wind and show what it was doing in the upper atmosphere. This was our jetty, a low ice foot flanked by unscalable cliffs that zigzagged out 6 miles to the open sea. It was deep, with 200 fathoms under the nozzle. That's a killer whale, small but fierce and heavy-jawed. Setting up base was a job for all hands. There were the 2 big living huts to be pieced together and 3 smaller ones. Then we turned the outsize aircraft crate into a general workshop. By this time, of course, most of us were already in polar disguise, snow goggles and beards. The dog food was already a bit ripe, but huskies have good appetites and strong stomachs. Hard work and open-air cooking, and Mordheim was ready for occupation. A microscopic rash of human endeavor marring the ageless white purity of the Antarctic. The wintering party actually moved in on February the 20th. There was nothing more now that we in the Norsel could usefully do for them, so we left. Captain John Yever and his 14 men of the 3 nations standing on the ice foot, then turning back towards Mordheim. There they will study the weather and make long sledge journeys to explore the distant mountains. And when they at last come back from this Ice Age continent, they will have added to our knowledge of the world we live in and paid the polar explorer's price in discomfort and risks run and long-drawn loneliness. Among the proud achievements of our 3 countries in the Antarctic, theirs will rank high.